hosted by the Hampton Chamber of Commerce, the Old Town Business Association, the Midtown Business Association, and the League of Women Voters. Today's forum will, of course, be conducted by our moderator, Ms. Harley, who, of course, with the League of Women Voters, will be joining us here shortly. A little bit about myself. I'm Tony Goodwin, of course, with the Old Town Business Association, the president of the association, and also a commercial real estate agent. And I take very true to heart commercial and, of course, business in this city is very important to this lifeblood. So we'd encourage you, I believe we have cards that if you haven't already filled out for questions from the audience, that is also going to be available in this forum. And then you'll have a moment afterwards to converse with, of course, our candidates that are on the panel. I'd like to also make a mention to the fact that we have Ms. Delsina back in the back with the future workshop coming up on November the 10th. Build One Portsmouth. It's a comprehensive plan overview and looking at how we can make it better for attracting more businesses and residents to our city. So a big welcome and thank you to you all that have been at our recent City Council candidate forum here just recently this morning, and then also staying for the mayoral, but most importantly the ones that have joined us here for the mayoral candidate forum. We appreciate you for joining us. I'd like to welcome to the podium right now my colleague, Tracy Lee, Tracy Lee with Integrity Solutions, who is a business member in the Midtown Business Association, so she will announce and welcome our moderator. Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back, everybody. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Tracy Lee, Governor of Integrity Security Services and co-chair of the Portsmouth Division of Economic and Governmental Affairs Committee. That is a big mouthful. On behalf of the Hampton Chamber of Commerce and our partners, the League of Women Voters of Hampton Roads and Southampton Roads, the Old Town Business Association, and the Midtown Business Association, I want to welcome you to this candidates forum again today. And at this time, I'd like to take a moment and introduce you to our candidates. We have with us today Mr. John Rowe, Mr. Cliff Page, Mr. James Sturdevant, and Shannon. Mayor Kenny Wright asked to extend his apologies. He did have to leave. He had a funeral to be at today, but he is hoping to return when he's done. But I'd like to give all the candidates that are here today a round of applause and invite Ms. Carol Garrison from the League of Women Voters Southampton Roads to state the forum rules. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. I just want to mention that this group does echo, so when their candidates are speaking, if you're speaking, everyone in the room also works very good. Our opening and closing statements are for 1 minute each, and the order was determined at the beginning. They've already drawn numbers. Candidates will present opening statements in the order which they started, so 1 after 5, and then on their closing statements it will come in reverse. Candidates will make their responses to the questions in the same order, starting with candidate number 2. So during the regular questions, if Mr. Shannon speaks first, the next person goes to the next, starts with the next person, and so on. So, the person who's speaking first always rotates. Mr. Barton is now taking on monitoring your time, and when you have 15 seconds left, he will hold up the yellow card. And then when your time is up, he will hold up the red card. And hopefully we won't have to ring the bell. Candidates were allowed to bring notes and take notes, but they're not allowed to include props or charts or diagrams, that kind of thing. We're asking the audience if they would refrain
true. It's so important. And local government is most important of all. We start with opening statements. Opening statements from Mr. Glover first in speaking order.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shannon Glover, and I'm running to be your next mayor in the city of Portsmouth because I believe that our city needs a positive change to move forward. I plan to use my education, my training, and experience as a business leader in this community to serve you, to listen to your concerns, to have accountability, open government and transparency, to have collaboration with our city council members and other leaders in the community, whether they be nonprofit, whether they be private sector, or whether they be within the total city government. As your next mayor, I plan to help heal, unite, and grow our community. And I ask for your vote on November the 8th. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Sturdevant. I'm a native, born and raised here, went to Wilson High School. I have a bachelor's degree from Atlantic Christian College and MBA from Rutgers University. I entered this race because I view this as an opportunity to work on a city that's in crisis. We have the highest property tax in the region, we have the highest unemployment rate in the region, we have the highest poverty rate in the region, and we have less than half of our schools that are accredited. We're in crisis and we need to address these issues and we need to fix them. In addition, we have a city council that's divided severely. We have to bring the council together. We have to reach common ground. And we have to develop a vision and a strategy for this city to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Page?
Good morning, I'm Cliff Page. I've been involved with this city and owned property here for 35 years. In total, about 40 years that I've lived in Portsmouth. I'm looking at four things that I'd like to talk to you possibly today about. One, I want to see improvements in our neighborhoods. I want to see our design review committees giving back to the people as the state law requires so that people have due process. I want to see small businesses improve. I believe that it is the small business, not the corporations, that we need to see back in our city. We lost 50% of them within 2 months of the tolls. I want to see tolls and transportation dealt with, and I want to see our taxes lowered. That means that we need to increase our population. And the fourth thing is I would like to see integrity and clean government brought back to the city. We're a dying fishbowl. We need to have transparency in that water.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe?
Thank you. I'm John Rowe, and Portsmouth is my hometown. At this point in the campaign, I'm sure that you're familiar with the rest of my background, but because today's event is sponsored by organizations that are concerned about economic development, I have a strong record of economic development here in Hampton Roads. When I was in Norfolk, I was the person that brought Cox Cable to Hampton Roads. Cable Value Network, which is now QVC, Golden State Foods, which is the supplier of McDonald's food products. The Tri-City Center for Portsmouth, Hills Brothers Coffee, which is now Massimo's Menu, which I helped to get in Portsmouth, and also TCC's campus here from Suffolk, Portsmouth. I request your vote on November 8th so that we can move Portsmouth forward and diversify our tax base.
Thank you very much. The questions have been prepared by the sponsoring committees. At least the first four questions that you will hear are from the committees, and then we will be asking questions from the audience. The first question will go to you, Mr. Sturdevant, and then we'll take the number order moving along. What areas of Portsmouth do you think present an opportunity for redevelopment and revitalization?
there's development and there's redevelopment, okay, and there's opportunities for growth. You know, we need to continue to work on Old Town Portsmouth. It's a treasure that we don't make enough of. There's a lot of historical activity, relevance down there. We should have guided tours, and we should stay on top of that and continue to revitalize Old Town. We have other properties like Craney Island that need to be developed. We have the old Wilson High School property that needs developed. We need to bring in businesses to put brick and mortar on those properties so the city can gain revenue from the new buildings, and the citizens can take the opportunity for employment when we bring a large company or an institution in to develop those properties. Thank you.
Mr. Page?
Let me tell you this. For 5 years, I was a charter member of the Design Review Committee of this city, which was the most powerful committee in the city. And I've also been a member of every consultancy since that time. And I know everything that's happened down there. I have a paper, if you look on my website, which is on a flyer, I'll take it at the end here. And I wrote a paper which is 54 pages long and covers things extensively. You can't get here in a minute. But some of the things I talk about, I want to put together a blue ribbon team to deal with how we're going to get Athens Square back on track again. That's a really blighted situation, and we should deal with that. I want to see dredging in our creeks. I want to see our waterfront improve. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe?
The question was geographic areas. First, the major transportation corridors of our city, like Victory Boulevard and Frederick Boulevard and Airline Boulevard. Certainly the waterfront property, Olde Insight, and the vacant property and unutilized property that's along our working waterfront. Lastly, the ports. 50% of all the port facilities are in Portsmouth now. When Craney Island is completed, 3/5 will be in Portsmouth. And we certainly can become the port city of the future here in our hometown.
Mr. Rowe?
Areas for revitalization based on what I've been reviewing, and I think this is the top priority of our city, are certainly the Airline Boulevard corridor, which currently has a distribution facility going up. Also, the Churchland area corridor, which we have vacant properties out there, in addition to areas that are close to the ports where we can consider the wood distribution as well. In addition to that, the Old Town section, the waterfront in Old Town, certainly again the Holiday Inn site is a prime piece of property, and we want to make sure that as a city we get that piece right. And the Midtown corridor. There's great access from the highway right in, still in the Midtown section. That is an area that we really need to concentrate on, in addition to the other areas that I mentioned for revitalization.
Thank you. For the next question, Mr. Page, we'll start with you for the first response. If elected to City Council, how will you bring higher paying jobs and businesses to the region to support our local economy?
There's some people who will say that we should go out and search for Fortune 500 companies. That would maybe bring us 500 people in here and lots of parking lots. I have a different approach. What this city needs, which has gone from 115,000 down to 97,000, is a continuous flow of cash into this city. That flow can come from a high-speed train out of Washington, D.C., through Richmond, Petersburg, to our city, and another one coming from Charlotte and Research Triangle into our city, into our CSX railhead. That is our principal place that we should revitalize in this city, because our 3 railroads own that lot, and if you're going to build a railroad, you've got to get to talk with rail people. We can have intermodal transportation in our city and across to Norfolk. It will revitalize not only this city, but Norfolk, and save students and people in this city millions of dollars.
You asked your question in the context of the region. We have to work together with the this new organization called Go Virginia, which is a partnership between the state and the business with a focus in on Hampton roads. Also with Reinvent Hampton Roads, which is really focused laser sharp on Hampton roads. It has been found to be an absolute fact. If you want business to flourish in the road, you look at what's already going in your region. And Reinvent Hampton Roads has done an assessment of 8 clusters, such as advanced manufacturing, health, port-related, anything that is flourishing now becomes a candidate for future investment.
Thank you.
I'm very pleased to be able to answer this question because as a businessman, I know exactly what this means to our community. Absolutely, one of the initiatives that has been approved, of course, is the Go Virginia. But more importantly, with that Go Virginia initiative, what the state and the leadership and the folks that will put the board together here locally, what they want to do is work from the bottom up with entrepreneurs, with the education colleges that we have here, with people in the community from the bottom up to help bring them on board to be innovative and create ideas to attract those industries to our community. That is where I'll use my skill sets as being the connector to identify businesses and opportunities where we can grow, such as healthcare, such as improving in the area of government opportunities and the such as that. So those are the things that I'll do and focus on when I become your next mayor.
Mr. Sturdevant.
There are a number of state and local economic development groups that we need to get closer to, we need to work with. Every time the governor goes out on a trade mission, whether it's to Southeast Asia, to Europe, to the Middle East, we need to work with the governor's office and make sure that there's a representative from Portsmouth on those trade missions. You know, that's the best way to reach out and touch companies that may have interest in the area. We also need to identify and inventory the available property that we have in Portsmouth. If you ask somebody, well, where could we locate a business? You know, they go, well, there's the Wilson property, you know, there's the Victory Crossing property, but we don't have one location where you say, okay, here's what we got, this is how big it is, and we can fit your factory or your distribution center on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to double down on Go Virginia. So the next question, going first to you, Mr. Rowe, is the Virginia Initiative for Growth and Opportunity, Go Virginia, was initiated to foster private sector growth and job creation through state incentives for regional collaboration by businesses, education, and government. What are your thoughts on regional cooperation, and can you give examples on how Portsmouth could collaborate more with other surrounding cities?
Great question. Every regional table, we already have a seat at that table. We need to make sure that our voice is effective and respected and trusted. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where we are viewed as not being a strong player at the regional table. We need to bring back respect, bring back the voice at these tables so that we are seen as a full partner at the regional level.
Certainly, with Go Virginia, you know, they've just started creating a local board here in the Hampton Roads region, and it needs to be in place by 2017. And I certainly understand the value of having a representative from Portsmouth at that table. There's no question, when we look at our economy, our regional economy, the Defense Department certainly is cutting back, and so we need to create additional innovative opportunities. We need to go to the entrepreneur community, the college community, we need to go to the business community and city governments and local governments to make sure that we're all working and talking together to understand what those concerns and needs are. Putting a plan together to meet those concerns and needs, and then continuing to work together as a region to make sure that we're meeting the goals that we set in terms of job creation and
ADP, Waterside, IKEA, the Prom Mountain Malls, and the new hotel in Midtown. 6,000 jobs. And we get Dunkin' Donuts. You know, that's not right. We need to do more. We need to reach out. We need to be closer with the other cities. And we need to find a spot for Portsmouth in the hierarchy of economic development. Until we do that, we're going to continue to suffer economically. Thank you.
Mr. Page.
This regionalism idea got underway years ago with Catherine Lewis and Admiral Harry Train, if some of you remember this. Hampton roads became a word in our vocabulary. I'm all for regionalism, but I'm going to tell you, our leaders in this city have dropped the ball. Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, the two richest and most powerful cities, which are nothing more than kudzu, have dominated regionalism and VDOT. We have been hammered a couple of times on the downtown tunnel when it was built. It was the beginning of the end for the city of Portsmouth. For 30 years I said, don't build the Midtown tunnel. I wrote the governor, I wrote an op-ed piece. You can see it on my web page 6 years ago. What will bring us together is a high-speed train and intermodal connectivity with Norfolk. Norfolk and Portsmouth are the cities in this area. That's where our regionalism needs to start. And we need leadership that will stand up for Portsmouth.
Thank you. We are ready for the first of the audience. No, one more from the team. And the first respondent is you, Mr. Butler. Portsmouth is steeped in history, blessed with a beautiful seaport, and graced with 4 centuries of wonderful architecture. So what could City Council do to promote these abundant assets to make Portsmouth a tourist attraction to rival Charleston?
First of all, I think resolving this issue is a big part of our future. You just said we're a historic city, and as a historic city, we need to take advantage of that opportunity. First of all, we need to make an investment back in our Convention and Visitors Bureau. We need to make sure we have the professional team that can put together the professional plan so that we can attract and bring people to our historic city to enjoy the wonderful history that we have. I shared with the group the other night that a lot of people didn't know that out off of Court Street where the monument is, that used to be an area called Lincolnsville. A lot of African Americans came out of that area. For example, Jeffrey Wilson, Mayor Howard. And so this area is rich in history. It's history that we must take advantage of. And as we take advantage of that history, more people will come and share the history, will grow our economy, and will be better for it.
Mr. Sturdevant.
Yeah, I think it's critical that we reestablish the visitor center. You can't possibly work with our history unless you have some place that we can direct our visitors to. We need to develop a list of qualified and trained tour guides. You know, this city is so deep in history. I mean, most people don't know that prior to the Civil War, that when there was a convention in Richmond, the Portsmouth delegation voted against secession. People don't know that. And we have to educate people. We have to advertise. We have to use resources to let people know there is a tremendous wealth of history. We had the first shipyard, the first dry dock in this country was built in Portsmouth. We need to work with the federal authorities to get a tour of the shipyard. We need to continue to expand our efforts to advertise to bring visitors into this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
For 30 years, as members of various design review committees, I have had to fight my great nemesis, which is Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority. For 40 years, the people of this city have had more common sense than our managers and our council. They have said, let's be Annapolis, let's be Alexandria, and do things. And yet, the council and the managers have mouthed these things, but they have done something else. One time, the PRHA came to the committee and wanted to demolish 19 buildings in one day, and I fought them off with the kept it from being demolished for 3 years, but they got them all, and they're still empty lots. There's where we need to change things. The oligopoly of welfareism in this state, this city, run by PRHA, needs to turn around, and let's have some work and education, doing vocational things and training so that we can have tourism. And a train will bring the cash in here. We can create the tourism if we preserve our heritage.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
This region, our region, has 3 economic drivers: the Department of Defense, the ports, and tourism. The city of Portsmouth made a huge mistake when it eliminated the Visitors and Convention Bureau some 6 or 7 years ago. Without that, we cannot really even scratch the surface on tourism. We need to bring back that office so that we can market our great city and show the world that we have history here that can be celebrated and visited.
Thank you. And this is the first question from the audience, and it won't surprise anyone here. The tolls have hurt families and businesses. Do you have a plan for reducing or eliminating the tolls? We'd be around to Mr. Silver.
Do I have a plan? No. Do we need a plan? Yes. I'm not sure how to work around the contract staying in this shape with the Elizabeth River Commission, but we need to work on it. You know, one of the things that we can do is we can figure out a way to keep people on this side of the river so they don't have to go north to the tunnel. You know, we need to work with Regent University. Virginia Western, we need to establish an opportunity for the students who want to go to college to get their degree in Portsmouth. You know, satellite campus for those schools that will keep hundreds and maybe even thousands of students from going through the tunnel on a daily basis to go to them. You know, we need to reach out to the people lying on the western edge of our city that don't have to go through the tunnel. Bring them into the city, avoid the tunnels, bring more jobs to the city so our citizens don't have to go through the tunnels for oil.
Mr. Page?
This is the biggest problem in our city, these tolls. It's killing our people. For 30 years, I fought against the Midtown tunnel, but even I did not understand the insanity that we would be forced into with the people, fining people, and I've talked 8, 12, 15, 20, $24,000. People are losing their property, they're losing their cars and everything else. I do have a plan, but it's not a total fix because the Supreme Court says this contract is legal. But I mean, as the leader, I will stand up against this and embarrass them ethically every opportunity. I want a shuttle running to Norfolk from our terminal downtown, which will be electrified and driverless. That shuttle will run 24 hours a day, and it will steal cars away from them. I want a third crossing to get the tractor trailers off of Hampton Boulevard and reduce their revenues. And I want to drive them to the point where they come back to us begging to change the contract.
Mr. Miller, the same question was asked this morning of the council candidates, and Lisa Lucasberg is absolutely correct in her answer. We need to work with our General Assembly delegation to get an appropriation to write down the tolls. It's been done before. Senator Louise Lucas was very successful in getting the tolls delayed by getting the General Assembly to appropriate funds to write down the cost of the tolls. That's where the relief will come from, the immediate relief. So it's important that Portsmouth have the respect and Richmond to get this job done, and the respect with our General Assembly delegation. It doesn't have.
Mr. Booker?
Yes, this is one of my priorities, and I've listened to a lot of people regarding the tolls, and it's hurting a lot of our residents. I got a call the other day from a local group that was coming together to talk with other players to look at reducing the tolls. I agree with the point that we have to do it regionally, and we have to go up to the General Assembly. But I'll even go further. We have to engage the business community and our affected residents. I was a part of a team of folks from the Portsmouth Partnership and the Martin Luther
next question from the audience will go first to you, Mr. Page. If we are going to attract young people to move to Portsmouth, our schools have to be better. How will you work with the school board and city council to improve our schools?
I'm an academic, I'm an educator, I've taught everything from Montessori to university. I've substituted in this school itself many times. I have a plan that I discuss pedagogy and a plan to change, radically change our school system in my paper. Please look at it. One thing that we need is vocational education in our schools, and I support those incumbents who are standing behind that for school board. Secondly, I want school uniforms. That's very important because discipline is everything in a school. We need good principals because principals set the standard in a vertically integrated command structure. And we need to bring money into this city, which will help, but money does not improve schools. We find that country schools do better than city schools. It's not about money, it's about values.
This is a critical issue. We have 19 schools in Portsmouth. 19. Only 8 are fully accredited. This should not be tolerated by any of us. So this has to be our top priority. And we have to work as a community, as a local government, and as a school board to come up with a strategy to get every one of our schools fully accredited. Everyone. And Paige is right. Cliff is right. It's not about money, it's about using the money correctly. Putting the money where it should go, not in overhead, but in the classrooms.
Thank you.
I believe Portsmouth's future depends on how we handle this particular issue. I am an advocate of public education. I am a product of public education. And I was supported by the Portsmouth Teachers Association to be your next mayor. The reality is, we've got to fund education, but in order for us to attract young families to come to our city, as we talk about all the time, and have them live here and raise and build their families here, we have to improve our school systems. I have a couple of my friends that are professionals in this city now. They're leaving Portsmouth. They're both attorneys, and the reason they're leaving is because they don't want to send their kids to our public schools. We have to change that because our public schools, not only does it impact the families, but it impacts our economic development and our future. Improve our schools, and you'll see other things improve as well.
Thank you. Mr. Sturdevant.
And there are only some ways that city council can impact education. You know, the city council funds the school system, but we can't direct the school board in exactly what we do. But we need to work with the school board. We need to understand how they're spending the money so that we can give them guidance. We need to understand that Portsmouth spends 20% more per student than any other city in the Hampton. Now something's wrong when a city this small and this poor is spending so much more than Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Norfolk. We need to examine the school board budget. We need to talk to the school board. We need to understand where that money's getting hung up. We need to make sure the money gets down to the student, teacher, instructional level, and make sure it's not getting hung up on the top of the funnel in administration. It's the students and the teachers that need money. Thank you.
The next question, which will be first to you, Mr. Rowe. As mayor, will you seek or propose raising our real estate taxes? If so, what would you suggest?
That's a very interesting question. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, so my goal would be to reduce taxes. We, unfortunately, are creatures of the state, and the state has given us the most regressive tax there is, and that's the real estate tax. We need to work as a city to get Virginia to loosen
this is one of my top priorities because I understand that first of all, I'm not for raising taxes. Right now, we have one of the highest property tax rates in the region, pretty much the highest in the region, and that impacts our people here. That impacts our elderly. That impacts the working folks. So we have to look at ways in which we can minimize the tax burden to our citizens. And I've often said that one of the ways that we can do it is by recruiting and retaining the businesses that we have to create an additional revenue stream to add more revenue to come into our city to minimize our costs. And so that's one of the ways that I would recommend that we focus on, put a laser focus on, and that would be one of my top priorities as your next mayor.
Mr. Sturdevant.
Raise taxes? No, hell no. That is not going to happen if I'm elected. I've talked about this in every forum. We have to develop new sources of revenue for the city. We have to develop businesses. We have to get brick and mortar. We have to get jobs for our citizens. When our citizens get jobs, they develop disposable income. They spend more money in the city. We get sales tax revenue. We can't continue to burden the taxpayers with the highest property tax rates in the region. You know, we have to find other sources of revenue. We have some issues. Over half the property in Portsmouth is not taxable. We've got state, federal, local government churches. So we have to identify places where we can help businesses find property and put up brick and mortar so that we can get additional sources of revenue for the city.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Within 2 months of the Midtown tunnel coming through, we lost 50% of our downtown businesses. This is something that I've fought for 30 years in trying to restore that area so that we can bring businesses back. Those businesses are critical to this city. Small businesses are far more critical than the big corporations that we have here. Newburgh is an example of that when Walmart walked off. Raising taxes becomes a matter of where are you getting your revenues from. The businesses keep your property taxes down. The way to do this is to bring in outside money from people who are richer than us. If we do that, we will become the richest city in Hampton Roads, not the poorest. And our taxes will go down, not have to be raised. That is my plan. But people need to be accountable. Whether you raise the tax or keep them at whatever they are, people need to know if you're elected, you're going to tell the people what you do and do what you say.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
No tax
We're ready.
increase.
We're ready for the next question. And now we go first to Mr. Lowe. How will you make yourself available to your constituents?
Well, I mean, this is an easy one. I'm all over the place in the city of Portsmouth, and I will continue to make myself available to my constituents by opening the door, so to speak. And when I say opening the door, perhaps having quarterly meetings at designated locations in our city to have access through probably a Facebook page for the mayor's office, something where people can send in information that we can look at and we can review it based on concerns and questions that individuals may have. And most importantly, I live in this neighborhood. Just be a neighbor, because I'll see you folks all out in the community, and we'll get to talk and we'll get to address concerns, and hopefully together we'll all make our city better.
Yeah, unlike the current mayor, I make myself available to the press. You know, if you don't talk to the media and tell them the truth, they're going to make the stories up. And that's what's happening.
It's in my paper. I'm asking for 5 wards in this city of wardsmen who are accountable for 18 to 20,000 people, so that we know that these entities, not churches, not civic groups that are fluctuating, but actual political entities speak to the people, and they are accountable to that pothole, that crack dealer, whatever. Then we have 3 people elected at large and a mayor who's elected at large. That would be for 3 and 4 years. The city government needs to be 9 people on the dais and not behind closed doors. People need to know what their representatives stand for, what they're doing, and I don't want to see closed doors things except as needed by law. That exposes everything, and therefore we have more give and take between the people. And I intend to be the leader here and going outside as the plenipotentiary to others.
Communication between the government and the citizens is the cornerstone of our democracy. And I've got a track record of doing that. Many of you know that I'm a city manager. The first thing I did the first day was remove the locks off the city manager's office, so it was open to the public. Also initiated coffee talk, where I went into the neighborhoods and had coffee with citizens. And most importantly, too, we need to talk to the press. And the very notion of government not talking to the press is bizarre. And so, as one lady recently called the house and said, "Will you return telephone calls to citizens like me?" That's an easy question to answer. Absolutely yes.
Thank you. This question from the audience deals with your priorities. What are the 4 most critical issues facing the city of Portsmouth? And it starts with you, Mr. Sturdevant.
Economic development, public safety, improved education, and that kind of economic development. This city won't survive. We have to find a way to generate revenue. We have to find a way to make the budget work. And that's why economic development is one of the problems. We need to take a look at our public safety. We have positions frozen. We have open positions in both fire and police. And it's just not right if we ask these gentlemen, firemen and policemen, to risk their lives and personal safety when we've underfunded those departments. I mean, it's almost criminal. So public safety is one number. Number 3 is figuring out what we need to do and how we work with the school board to improve the number of schools that we get accredited to state.
First and foremost thing that anybody on the council has to address is the public safety. This is because it is a charter responsibility of this city, and we can lose our charter as a city. So this is the question that I always ask the police and firemen. Now my response to that is, they ask us, "We're going to get a raise," and I say, "No, sir, you're not going to get a raise because we don't have the money, and to give you a raise requires raising taxes, and our people are trying to leave the city because of that." But, that being said, the fire department have given me information at our meetings, and what I have said is that the fire department is lacking in the requirements on a national level. They must be funded to bring them up to the minimum. Secondly, transportation. A high-speed train into this city is critical. Third, tourism, which will follow that if we bring in people with more discretionary income. And fourth, we must deal with those revenues, which will come from these matters, and the budget to keep it balanced.
Well, this is so fundamental. All 4 are intertwined and related. We've got to improve our school system. We've got to have strong neighborhoods. We've got to give attention to public safety and, of course, economic development. They all work together. All work. Again, it's intolerable that we only have 8 of 19 schools It's intolerable when we lose 2 police officers like we recently did to another city. And guess what city that was? Franklin. And guess what the pay differential was? $10,000. We should not be the training ground for anybody. All these priorities have to be looked at the same time. The quality of the school system permeates everything else.
This is one of my top priorities, of course, and quite frankly, when I look at it, economic development, workforce development, top of the charts. We've got 5.8% unemployment in this town. We've got to help people find living wage jobs. As a city, collaborating with the private sector and working to make that happen. In addition to that, the schools have to improve because it all rolls into economic development. Third, we need to make sure that we fund our fire and safety. Because if we don't have a safe community, people will not want to come here either. And lastly, we have a section of our community that are low income, and we need to provide policies and ideas to help those folks get the workforce development and training so that they can increase an opportunity to have a living wage to improve their quality of life for themselves and their children.
Yeah, I figured out a way to fund positions for the And it's like walking through a minefield. You know, we need to have somebody to help guide the small businesses, especially large corporations. They have people to deal with it. Like the small businessman, the entrepreneur has to figure his way how to maneuver through this minefield of taxes and fees and permits and user fees. And we need to have somebody help guide them through that. And until we do that, we're going to end up with people who want to open a small business in town, and they give up, they throw up their hands. They just say, I don't have to do this in Chesapeake. I'll just move there. Thank you.
The next question would be first for Mr. Rowe, and it deals with quality. What quality of life improvements can City Council make to enhance Portsmouth's appearance and reputation?
The people who look at population trends nationwide feel that there's going to be a move back to cities over the next 50 years because that's where jobs are, where transportation is, and that's where cultural activities are. And we're rich in our cultural activities. All the fests that take place, in fact, there's one today in Wright. We need to make sure that things like the Seawall Fest, Lit Ball, Braddock Days continue to flourish and be the heart of what we are as a community. We need to instill in our citizens a passion that when they go visit others, they beat on their chest and say, I love my city.
Again, quality of life really deals with a lot of different things, but most importantly, I think it's pride in where you live and what you do. And so, in our city, we absolutely need to continue to enhance our citizens' experience, exposure to opportunities. One example is they just completed the fishing pier out at City Park. That's a quality of life thing, and you may not think that's a big deal, but I've actually walked on that fishing pier, and I had an opportunity to look out over the water, and I felt real good about that. So continuing to create those opportunities in our city, little and maybe big, to enhance the quality of life, give folks opportunities to have outlets and things to go to and use, and I think they'll feel better about themselves, and they absolutely will feel better about our city.
Mr. Sturdevant.
You know, I think one of the issues here is we can work on public safety. I have family members who don't want to go down town after dark. We just don't have enough police. We need to brighten up the lights. We need to shed light on the darker parts of downtown so that people feel comfortable and feel safe and want to go down there and want to spend their money in the restaurants and shops and stores. We can't get people to come downtown under daylight hours because that's when they feel safe. You know, we need to add back the frozen vacant positions in the police department so that people will walk down and they'll see a policeman patrolling the streets and they'll feel safe. And until we do that, we're going to continue to have a 9 to 5 population of downtown Portsmouth because people don't like to go down there after dark. And it's a shame because I think it's nice. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett.
One of the things that I call for in my paper is something that Norfolk did a few years back with Colonial Place, and then they dispensed of it. But it is a committee of people working with their planning department and their redevelopment department, and they work with neighborhoods, showing them how to improve their neighborhoods, whether it could be, trying to get a good streetscape and taking down chain link fences or getting plants in there and so on. That's something we can work on in this city. I want a clang trolley coming from this terminal I've been telling you about, going into our downtown. I talked about this for years. 1980, I was telling the city council about this. I want to get PRHA away from being an oligopoly welfareism and start building houses and putting money into better attracting tourism like dealt with, and we can create a horticultural center where we're growing plants and put them on our streets.
There are two questions here on economic development that might be blended by the respondents. One, what do you believe can be done to help diversify our economy? And how will you help bring higher paying jobs to the region to support our local economy? And Mr. Glover, would be first.
Well, going back to kind of the Go Virginia concept that we talked about before, diversifying the economy. So we need to certainly look at what we do well as an economy here in our city today. Shipyard, the ports, perhaps healthcare, those kind of things that we do well, we can certainly enhance and attract more companies that provide those services. But in addition to that, things that are on the cutting edge of innovation like technology, like other industries, modeling and simulation that are on the rise and that are looking for outlets and opportunities and a workforce to be able to come to places and make their companies viable. Those are the kind of things that I would do as your next mayor, to look at those opportunities, collaborate regionally, absolutely, look at best practices in the region and in other places, and take those best practices and put them to work in our city.
Mr. Sturdevant.
Yeah, you have to look at what's available in terms of development. I mean, we have 30, 40 acres sits behind Mayoral Hospital, Mayoral Hospital's medical complex. You know, maybe we ought to look at talking to people like MD Anderson out of Houston, Cleveland Clinic, the Mayo Clinic, or the Scripps Institute. They may need a mid-Atlantic area regional center, and they're right by the hospital where they can move fit. Maybe we go to biotech and you talk to Biogen or Amgen and bring them from the West Coast. Maybe they want to establish an East Coast headquarters. And again, it's right by the hospital. We can work out ways to work with Mary Secure so that it's a symbiotic relationship. And those are the kinds of things you got to look at. The waterfront, there's lots of property available on the waterfront, and a large part of our economy here is based on shipping and the marine industry. We need to utilize that. Thank you.
This question is really pertinent because it, for 40 years, has been the answer given by the people in the comprehensive plan every 10 years required by the state. They've said it. Let's turn this place into more of an Annapolis and Alexandria and a getaway from just a single industry, the shipyard. The shipyard, we're losing our skilled workers over there because they're being contracted out. That's a serious problem. We're going to end up seeing this shipyard become privatized if we're not careful. Secondly, if we have a high-speed train coming into this city, we will see a lot of discretionary income, and it will filter down to small businesses, not the corporations. That's what we need, because small businesses are part and parcel of the economy and the people that live here. We should look at Vermont Country Store or Land's End, where they deal with tourism and small front shops, and visitors go there, but we have regional distribution centers, and their stuff is bought over the internet or by catalogs. That's something we can do.
Well, this is a variation of an earlier question that we had, almost identical, but I think you have to answer it in the context of the region. We've got to be concerned about how competitive our region is against other regions like the Research Triangle, Charlotte, Nashville, Memphis. In 2007, right after that, we had the Great Recession. We have not come back as a region to the same employment level that we had in 2007. We've lost 20,000 uniformed personnel. So this is a big, big issue for our region. And that's why it's really important that Portsmouth have a loud, respective, and civil voice at the regional table, because this is where we can move our region forward. Thank you.
This might be the Mr. Congeniality question of the day from the audience. And it goes first to you, Mr. Sturdevant. If you had to vote for someone other than yourself, Mayor,
Well, we know who's congenial, right? Well, I'll tell you what, look, I like Jim. Jim and I have talked on a number of occasions. We joked at one prior meeting that we had at a civic league meeting. If either of us were elected mayor, we would bring them in to like consult with each other. So Jim Sturdevant would be my guy, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience for your contributions of the questions, and thank you to panelists for their responses. And we will be ready to go to closing statements. And the closing statements will begin with Mr. Rowe. And then this way.
Portsmouth is the geographic center of Hampton Roads. When you look at the map, we're right there in the center. It's also the demographic center. The population is shifting from Virginia Beach and Norfolk, and the actual center is just off the west edge of Craniana, and it's mentioned in the water. We can be the city that is the center of Hampton Roads if we have the right leadership. The right leadership on the council, the right council members, and the right mayor. And experience counts. We need a mayor that can hit the ground running on day one. And I've got that experience, and I ask for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Our city is a dying fishbowl. The managers will tell you that they're going to pull out a stick and stir it. It won't bring the fishies back. You got to throw out the water, because if you stir it, all you'll do is get cloudy, milky water. You got to put new fish in there. You got to put clean water in there, which is visible and transparent, and that's like government. And you have to bring in food and loving care to those fish. That means you've got to take care of your people. But you bring in the food from outside, just like you need to bring in capital from outside this area, because we are poor and we need people to come in here and tip us, and we need to smile and say thank you and come back again. That's the way you turn our city around from being the poorest to the richest city in Hampton Roads, and we indeed are the epicenter of this area. We need to speak up. We need to join with Norfolk once again and become the greatest city in this area that we were for many years after the revolution.
This campaign has been an interesting and educational experience. At one form, the mayor called me a rascal, and I'm not quite sure what that means anymore. It's kind of old. I was called out for being negative for simply pointing out that we have the highest property tax, the highest unemployment, the highest poverty rate, school accreditation issues. That's not being negative, those are the facts. Anna Kay, in one forum, called me an outsider and said you came out of the woodwork. Well, I guess what that means is I'm not part of the ruling Portsmouth political elite, and I'm good with that. 2 days after I filed my petition, the chairman of the Portland Board of Elections came to my house and demanded, not asked, demanded that I withdraw from the election. Well, I'm still here, and I'm going to be here. Regardless of the outcome of this election, I will continue to speak out on behalf of the citizens of Portsmouth. Thank you.
Well, I think I'm uniquely qualified to answer this question. I came here 26 years ago with the United States Navy in service to my country. My wife and I were married here. Our children were born here in the city of Portsmouth. Bought my first house here. This is the only place that I've known. This is my home as my adult life. After I served my country, I went into service to my community. I served as past president of the Portsmouth Partnership. I mentored young men, at-risk men, with the Friends of Juvenile Courts. I read to young children in the Beer Reader program at Lakeview Elementary. After serving my community, I looked at where our city was going in terms of its leadership and the negative road that it was going down, and I decided that now is the time for me to serve my city. And on November the 8th, I asked for your vote to do just that, to serve our city and heal, unite, and grow this place because together we're better.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to be with you today. And we have a question from the audience.
Yes, obviously, I didn't take the question for the panel, and if it was permitted, I'd like to express about 3 or 4 minutes before we leave this night. I can accept that.
Can you do what you wish to say?
Yes.
60 seconds? Because all of the panelists have been limited to 60 seconds, and that is unfair.
Well, I can understand that, but the paper said 1 o'clock and it's 1:12 now, so I know you're over. So I asked for a little extension. And what I wanted to say to the candidates and the candidates in the future, take the late James Holland. He said, we are family. The only sitting around here the whole time that we are family. When somebody bad about Portsmouth, you straighten out. Just this week, my son called me from Woodbridge, and he said he spoke to a guy, and he said, where you from? Some point. He said, all Portsmouth. I said, man, that's not what I got up here to say. I spoke to one of the candidates, I don't know whether he remembered me at this event, and he said he noticed in Portsmouth that most of the black churches is owned by private, and I agree with him. And in the occasion community, there's been, I think I counted 5 that has closed down. I want 800 numbers for Portsmouth or for the United States all around to report charity when they get the exemption status and does not give back to the community. That's what I wanted to say. And there are plenty of land for all of the churches, most of the political land and the one on Portsmouth Boulevard, they got money to make there to put up a house. They do what PM Armies do, rent room. $600, $700 a month. That's what Portsmouth is doing now with the citizens staying in hotels. They got the money to do it.
Thank you for caring and for participating. And thank you all. And bring back Towne from Towne.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today at the Mayoral Forum, and also prior to that, our City Council Forum. And on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, of course, and also the Old Town Business Association, Midtown Business Association, League of Women Voters, we thank you all for your attendance. I'd also like to thank Ms. Marty Rollins for moderating the event today, and I'd also like to put a shout out to our audio technician having a big challenge in this room, mics, mobile mics. We've been able to get good sound, and it's a very hard room to deal with. And also the vendors at our back tables. Please visit them before you leave and see what they have to offer. And of course, our food trucks that supplied lunch today, we thank them as well. Thank you to our candidates for mayor, and we look forward to a very prosperous future for Portsmouth. Either one of you winning, I think, is a good push, but at the same time, too, good luck to you all.